riot. I'm telling you, they're not going to stop, and they should not.
These people are tearing up our livelihood.
A third straight night, Portland police declared a riot.
The vast majority of the protest has been peaceful.
Over the weekend, 59 officers injured and 47 people arrested.
New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announcing a proposal to cut $1 billion from the New York City Police Department.
We need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
This has been declared a riot.
Well, churches across the country have been fighting for the right to congregate during the coronavirus pandemic, and in many cases defying state and local governments who have tried to shut them down in the name of public safety.
Just last week, a Ventura County Superior Court fined the church $3,000 and held it and its pastor in contempt for having indoor services against a temporary court order.
And our council and our county is being forced by funding to submit to these draconian measures by the governor.
We went into court in fear that a pastor might have been taken to jail in contempt.
The first three words of the Constitution is "we the people," not "we the government."
A sharply divided Supreme Court has ruled Nevada can limit church attendance.
The founders of this country had a keen understanding of the importance of religious freedom because so many of them were fleeing religious persecution. So they protected the exercise of religion in the very First Amendment to the Bill of Rights.
Our first speaker is an endangered species. He gave me the line, a California conservative who's here to make a difference, who loves God, who has taken a stand in faith, in freedom, in media, spreading the word of God. A big round of applause for our friend, Pastor Rob Mccoy, everybody. God bless you, sir.
Oh, God bless you guys. Wow. What an honor. Considering how many Californians have moved to Idaho, I feel at home. I got a call from Winston Sanders, who used to be a member of our congregation, who lives here. And he said, is there any chance to have Charlie Kirk come and speak in Idaho? Because Charlie's publicly said I'm his pastor, which people think means his booking agent. And I just threw it by Charlie, and he said, you know, I was thinking he'd dismiss it because he's busier than a one-legged man in a butt-kicking contest. And he said, you know, I think God's saying we're supposed to go. And then as things, yeah, amen, you can clap for that. Charlie loves the Lord with all his heart, soul, strength, and mind. And when he hears from the Lord, it's clear. And as things got busier, he said, what's this thing in Idaho that I agreed to? And I said, the thing that the Lord told you about. And he said, right. Well, the Lord opened up that door. There's a pastor that when I went through the lawsuit and was fined by the state and given a $3,000 fine, and they're trying to shut us down, and they want to send in officers to arrest 1,000 of our congregants and the whole bit. You probably maybe seen it, I don't know. We stood in defiance, and there was a pastor in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. His name's Paul Van Noy. He sent us a $3,000 check. By the time I left the courthouse and arrived, it had been wired to us. He wanted to pay the fine. That's the character of Idaho. When that video showed, you heard the pastor say, we the people. I've been accused of violating Romans 13, that I do not honor authority. I understand Romans 13. And I understand Romans 13 in accordance with a constitutional republic that states the authority in Romans 13 is we the people. When our elected officials who swore to defend the Constitution that protects us from them violating our inalienable rights given to us by God, the Declaration says it's our right and our duty to push back. I'm honoring God. I'm honoring this constitutional republic. I'm honoring we the people. I'm honoring the authority. I called Paul and I said, thank you for your gift. I'd never met him in person, never even seen him face to face. And I said, hey, we're going to be in Boise. If I can get us up to Coeur d'Alene, would you want Charlie in your church? He said, really? I said, you bet. They're wide open. He's been beat up in the press. And he agreed to it. I called him about 7 days later and said, Paul, there's a couple of things, just got to work through it. He said, if you don't mind, work with my secretary. I'm in the throes of COVID right now. He's got some comorbidities. And then about 9 days into it, he said, this is really taking its toll on me. I have to go to the hospital. Then they said he had a 20% chance to live. They'd put him on a ventilator. I know. And he texted me and he said, even if this takes me, and I don't believe the Lord will, I want my people to live in freedom. Well, the Lord delivered him, and we'll be with him tomorrow. Charlie did hear from the Lord. This is a God-ordained event. It's time that the churches in America stand, and the man who is stronger and more bold than any pastor I've ever met, at 26 years of age, he has single-handedly taken an entire generation of young people and awakened them to the gift that God gave us in this nation. And I am so honored that he would think to call me his pastor. It's probably one of the most honorable gifts I've ever received. And you're about to hear from him. You didn't come to hear from me. So I want you to welcome my dear friend, my brother, and a young man who's going to change America and is changing America, Charlie Kirk.
Thank you. It is great to be here. Sorry for the delay. Thank you. It's awesome to be here. It's nice to be in America for once. It's good. We spent so much time in California visiting Rob. So we were in Arizona this morning. Sorry for the delay. It's actually now Arizona has become a battleground state. So that extra hour that we were a little delayed actually might help save the republic. So I guess it's all worth it. So I think Idaho is comfortably going to go in the right direction. So thank you for coming out. It's incredible. We've been barnstorming the country. We've been going from Michigan to Maine to Minnesota to Florida to Washington and now here to Idaho. Despite the shutdowns and the restrictions, I feel compelled that the last 8 years of everything that we have had a chance to do on over 2,000 high school and college campuses across the country have really led me to this moment. This moment now, right before this election, was going to be consequential enough. And then last week, unexpectedly, a Supreme Court vacancy happened. And so now we have a Supreme Court fight. And by the way, what an incredible selection the president has made with Amy Coney Barrett, right? Unbelievably terrific. We'll talk about that. And a presidential election. All the while, we are having a very serious discussion of who are we as a country. Are we a country where we are thankful that we live in America or angry that we live in America? Are we a country that teaches our young people that you should be understanding of our history, believing that the Founding Fathers created the greatest political document ever in the United States Constitution? Are we going to tear down everything that we worked so hard to create generations prior? This is a question that we've now been wrestling with this summer and the last couple months. And it's all coming to a head in the next 40 days. And so I turned to my team, I turned to my pastor, and I said, I want to go to every single state that I possibly can. We're doing 2 podcasts a day. We're doing one on Saturday, one on Sunday. We'll be in Coeur d'Alene tomorrow morning, as Rob mentioned. We'll be in Chicago later that evening, then Omaha, Nebraska, back to Scottsdale for another event in Arizona, and then all the way through. Because look, we have a system that's been created in our country where it takes an active citizenry. We have things so good in this country that we have grown accustomed to be spectators, not activists. Whereas the left, they have become activists more than spectators. They're the ones, and let's just be honest, that have run for the school board races, run for the mayor's races. You guys know that all too well with what's going on in Boise, my goodness. Running for city council, running for state legislature. And it's actually very predictable, where that if you have things that have been built for a very specific reason, it's easy to grow accustomed to those. And so what's really happened in the last couple months, where all of a sudden we've seen the disintegration. In the last couple months, have you felt like you've started to lose your country? I know I have. Where all of a sudden we have seen the most radical voices being elevated in pop culture, Hollywood, media, where we're going back to this very dangerous idea where we're judging people based on the color of your skin. Where in our school system, we are having young people have to take a knee because of their immutable characteristics at 7 years old. We're in California, where Rob is from, and I'm proudly not from. They've just passed SB 145, where it decriminalized pedophilia, where if you're a pedophile, you are now given extra privileges and protections, pandering to the pedophilia lobby. Where on Netflix, they have cuties, where it's so incredibly gross that anything could even be shown like that on a mainstream publishing platform. And if over the last couple months, it seems as if it is slipping out of our control. And if you feel that way, you're right. And so one of the reasons why I think a lot of you guys are here is because you're not comfortable just sitting idly by watching this country that you love so much be disintegrated in front of you. And so what I do, and my normal job when it's not, the entire country's not closed, I visit college campuses so you don't have to. I visit everywhere from Stanford to Yale. Yeah, thank you. And so, and let me tell you, what's happening on our college campuses is not staying on our college campuses. It's not confined to just the campuses. If we are honest with ourselves, the last couple decades, we have made a sequence of serious errors. One of the greatest was that we sent our most prized possession in our country, our young people, to places that we thought they were going to become more mature, more appreciative, more tolerant, and more informed. And while there's some great universities out there, generally these colleges have become indoctrination factories, and they have been treating activists to, quite honestly, have very little appreciation and gratitude for our country. You want to know why Portland is burning down? Why Seattle is burning down? Why Nashville? It's because we did not communicate our fundamental values to young people. Instead, we sent them to overly priced universities where they borrowed money they do not have to study things that don't matter, to find jobs that don't exist, where the national graduation rate is 59%. Out of those who graduate, 44% end up actually even finding jobs that do not require a college degree, 44%. And when you enter a university environment, it is hostile towards the ideas of religion, believing in God, the Bible. In fact, the fastest growing religion on universities across the country is atheism, a belief in nothingness. And so we look at the college landscape where we and I focus my time so intently. We have to ask ourselves the question, what is going to actually reverse it? And so when you see people such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, where do they get these ideas? We're funding those ideas with our tax dollars, with our tuition dollars, sometimes with our voluntary donations to these universities. And now we are seeing the multi-decade fruit of what happens when you send young people to these colleges unrestricted. You want to know where BLM Incorporated got these ideas? The university. You want to know where the defund police idea, which is an evil idea, and let's give it up for our amazing law enforcement officers. They do such an amazing job for our country. These ideas originate in the halls of higher education, but it's even worse than that. It would be bad if it was full of indoctrination. It would be bad if they were becoming tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars into debt. All of those things are awful, but it's even worse. It's if you dare disagree with them, they will destroy your life. In fact, it's even worse than that. If you don't say what they tell you to say, they will destroy your life. If you don't post the black square on Instagram, they will hunt you down, they will find you, they will fire you from your job. 71% of young people in our country believe if they speak their mind religiously or politically, they fear they will lose their job or lose their friends. You see, there's a lot of talk about censorship and cancel culture in our country. That is a very real threat. In fact, I think it's the number one issue in our country right now is the idea of the lack of freedom of speech. But do you know who the number one censor in the country is? It's not Facebook, it's not Google, who I think should be regulated and I think should be broken up. But that's a different point that I'll make in a second, because I think these tech companies have done so much damage to our country and they are given ridiculous governmental privilege through Section 230. But it's even worse than that. The number one censor is yourself. Self-censorship is ruining this country. When you're less likely to wear the Trump hat when you go into the grocery store because you're afraid that someone's going to come up to you. When you're less likely to wear the cross around your neck because you don't want to lose friends. When you're less likely to post on Facebook because you don't want to have your kids be thought of as unpopular. The epidemic, and I use that word intentionally, of self-censorship will break this country before anything else. Because they didn't have to pass a law. They didn't have to even enforce it. Instead, the fear of retribution. When people say, I am not speaking because I believe that if I do, I will pay a price. That is evidence that their bullying and their totalitarianism has gone way too far. And so it's very interesting when you look at there's only really two ways to govern human beings. You can govern them by talking, speaking, and convincing, or by force. If you do not allow people to talk, to speak, to air out their differences, you will quickly descend into tribal identity groups. And that's what we're seeing happen in our country in real time, where all of a sudden people are less likely to have a conversation with someone they disagree with. If you feel as if I can't even understand why someone will not have that conversation with you, it's because the society that built the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world, which is the United States of America, we did that, and there's a reason why it's the First Amendment, to be able to air those differences. And so over the last 6 months, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about who we are as a country. I've been terrified at certain things, and I've been angered by certain things. I've been angered when I see my pastor, Rob Mccoy, from Calvary Chapel, Thousand Oaks, open his church and say that church is essential and salvation is essential. When he does that, he gets criminalized, threatened for arrest, and he has a court date on Monday when California is coming after him. Meanwhile, the cannabis dispensary, the liquor stores, the home improvement stores, and the abortion factories remain wide open with no restrictions. Where they're going after the church because they have always wanted to go after the church. Where, if that was not bad enough, within certain churches, they're marching alongside BLM Incorporated. The churches are the ones that are taking the knees. That saddened me and it frustrated me. But equally as so, I have seen record amounts of people rise up, like yourself, to say that I'm angry when I see the streets of our country burn. I'm frustrated when I see looters and rioters be justified by district attorneys across the country and be let out with no penalty at all, yet pastors are being criminalized. But the Founding Fathers gave us one way to remedy this. It was actually brilliant. If you read the Federalist Papers, especially Federalist 61 by James Madison, he knew that conflict was inevitable, that groups would go up against each other. But they gave us a pressure release valve. It's called elections. And all of us, when you turn on television, you say, man, I don't know if I could take another night of seeing an American city that I love burned to the ground. You circle on your calendar and you say, but we have election day coming up. I don't know if I can take another pastor that goes to prison, but we have election day coming up. And we have an amazing opportunity in November because the ruling class in our country, they control Wall Street, they control our universities, they control almost all of corporate America, they control the education of your children, they control what you see on TV, but there's one thing they do not control. One thing. And that's you. And it bothers them. In fact, they consider the people, that's exactly right. The one thing that they have not been able to figure out how to control is the people. In fact, you see many times they go out of their way to try and call you deplorable, to try and call you nasty, because they consider you a roadblock to their power grab. They consider you an annoyance. They consider your viewpoint detestable, backwards, and medieval. If you don't believe me, just listen carefully to what they have to say. Look at how already in the last 24 hours they are slandering a righteous woman, Amy Coney Barrett, by saying that it is wrong that she adopted 2 black children from Haiti. You don't believe me? Just look at the tweets from Next Gen America, which is one of the top left-wing activist groups, or they're smearing this wonderful woman. 24 hours it has been rumored she's been on the Supreme Court. They're already doing a multi-million-dollar smear campaign against her because they truly have contempt for what you believe. They have contempt for you. But guess what? The way our system was designed, which is so incredibly brilliant when you think about it, it doesn't matter how many institutions you control. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that Amazon, Google, the Washington Post, Netflix, the universities, the experts that are wrong about everything, by the way. They haven't been right about anything in the last couple of years. They haven't been right about medical projections. They haven't been right about stock market projections. They haven't been right about foreign policy projections. They've been wrong about everything. But the way our system is designed is that the people are the sovereign and your rights are sovereign. We're the only country in the world that actually works that way when you think about it. It's unbelievably brilliant what the Founding Fathers did, where they gave us this gift and they said, we know that people are going to amass a lot of power because human beings are likely to abuse their power. However, if you allow speech, the best ideas will win. That's why they've been trying to shut us up. Because they know if they can get us to stop talking, they can start to get us to start following them. Speech is the only thing that we have left to be able to communicate truth and goodness and fundamental American values. So we talk about this election. People say it's the most important election of our lifetime. I don't agree with that. I think it's the most important election since 1860. Never before have 2 worldviews been so completely opposite on the ballot. Never before have we had one political party stand for open borders, stand for the confiscation of your firearms, the closure of churches, the normalization of pedophilia, which makes me sick to my stomach to even say it, but I have to say it because it is truly happening at the highest levels of their party in California, where they stand for endless misadventures overseas. And yet on the other side, it's the exact opposite for the better. I mentioned the people, and I'm going to connect it to what the side of freedom believes in. In 2015, normal people were growing restless. I use that word normal people intentionally. I mean the people that shower before work and after work. I mean people that didn't go to Harvard. I mean people that own a small business. I mean people that go to church, that hunt, that own a firearm, that have a couple kids, that actually revere this flag, the backbone of our country. They were growing impatient because normal people in our country were working hard. They were doing the right thing. And yet they did not see their lives get materially that much better, and they kept on seeing their political class say one thing and do another. They kept seeing the people they were sending to Washington, D.C. promise a certain sequence of deliverables, and they weren't seeing it fulfilled. And so normal people said, How am I going to get the political class's attention? Because we've been rising up in Tea Party rallies, we've been electing Republicans, but nothing's changing. I know the angry guy from New York who's really loud, that will get their attention. Because people were tired of seeing their manufacturing jobs be shipped off to Wuhan. They were sick of saying, I loved that factory that existed in Hubbard, Ohio, because as soon as that factory closed, church attendance went down. The local small businesses crumbled. Opioid addiction went up. Our young people's morale, like that, as soon as we closed down that factory. And we did that to 12 million jobs, like that, under the guise of free trade, to ship them overseas. And the anxiety grew for years, where certain people in the Republican Party would talk a good game, but the deliverables weren't there. And so then a member of the ruling class, someone who was never supposed to do this, by the way, you understand that, right? It was supposed to be Jeb Bush. It was. He raised $100 million. He had all the right answers. His father and his brother was president. And by the way, I'm not actually, he's a nice guy. I mean, I actually kind of think he's normal. In the sense, not normal in the sense he's from a ruling class. I think he's okay. I'm not actually against him. But I don't want him to be president because I know exactly what he would have done. He would have put people like John Roberts on the Supreme Court, who said that church was not essential recently. He would have continued this era of the same sort of bipartisan policies that quite honestly weren't helping normal people. And so then, in a clumsy way, in a way that none of you would have expected, that was kind of a 2 a.m. wake-up call, where you're kind of, what on earth is going on? This guy comes down the escalator. And he talks differently than anyone we've ever seen in the political class. There's no teleprompter. There's a long red tie, nothing but American flags behind him. And he walks up in his billion-dollar building and his whole lifestyle, and he says, we've been losing and I'm sick of it. And the entire political class was like, you're not supposed to talk about that. Just talk about tax cuts and stop it. And he said, our immigration policies have been awful. Open borders are hurting people. I don't like the way we've been doing trade, and it's time we love our country again. And by the way, I will never apologize, and you, the media, have played a role in this. I'm running for president. He walks off stage. And so then, and absolutely, he's blunt. That's why we liked him, right? And something incredible happened. We were told he has no support. Oh, it's all fake supporters at his first event. And then he starts showing up to places, and people come out of the hills, and they come out of the rivers. I don't know what they were doing in the rivers. They come out of the lakes, and they come out of the valleys, and all of a sudden, there was a seismic shift happening. And then I was there at the ground level in 2016. I traveled the country with Donald Trump Jr. I was his Diet Coke retriever. I was his Red Bull catcher. I was his selfie taker and his bodyguard all together. I was the entire campaign staff dedicated to youth outreach. And people say we colluded with Russia. We couldn't order a pizza, let alone collude with Russia, okay? Jeez, it was the ultimate grassroots campaign. And he won. And it was one of the greatest nights I've ever lived in my life. But in an amazing way, and this is really important, the ruling class was so taken by surprise, they were so shell-shocked, they thought that was going to be the beginning and the end of Donald Trump. From the moment he was declared the winner of states Republicans were never supposed to win, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, winning county after county after county, all of a sudden, a plot of revenge started to get planned. Because again, they were very worried that you had too big of a voice as soon as he won. And remember, he beat 16 other Republicans. He beat the media, the tech companies, outspent 10-1, the Bush dynasty and the Clinton dynasty, voter fraud, everything combined, he beats all of that, right? And then the transition process happens. They spy on him. They launch a fake investigation against him. We now have the evidence to show that it was completely and totally fabricated from within. They impeached him, and that we should put those people in jail, by the way, for what they did. Peter Strzok and Lisa Page and Brennan and Clapper and every single one of them. It is a disgrace what they did to this president. And throughout all of that, President Trump violated the golden rule. There's a golden rule. He did what he said he was going to do. You're not allowed to do that. You can't actually move the embassy to Jerusalem. You just say you do that, and then you don't. You understand? That's the way D.C. works. You don't actually use the list of Supreme Court justices. You just run on it, and then you go kind of mediate it in the middle. But no, God willing, if the U.S. Senate does their job, and they will be richly rewarded if they do their job. I tell you this right now, and I have been so pleased to see the courage Senate Republicans have been taking in the last week to say they will confirm our third justice in 4 years, everybody. It's absolutely incredible. But there's a price to pay for that. And the price was that they tried to destroy him and destroy his family. From Donald Trump Jr. taking a singular meeting that resulted in nothing. Meanwhile, Joe Biden's son is sex trafficking people intercontinentally when he got a $3.5 million wire from the wife of the mayor of Moscow, where the Senate report itself says that there was prostitution and Eastern European criminal activity involved. And yet it's Donald Trump Jr.'s life who they try to destroy. And Donald Trump knew exactly what he was getting into. He knew that his business dealings, his tax filings, his reputation, all of the friends that he made over the last 30 years would vanish for a very simple reason. Because before he ran for president, he went to those cocktail parties. He was a member of the ruling class. He knew the people that owned the media institutions, and he was loved by them. He knew the people that ran these transnational corporations. And then something happened in him where he recognized the people that he considered his true friends, the carpenters, the welders, the police officers, the firefighters, the people that worked with their hands, they were being betrayed regularly. And when he would walk a job site and he would just ask someone, say, hey, what do you think of politicians? He said, we've been lied to for 30 years. Huh. And he found very little to disagree with on that. And the reason he got in the game was to fight for you. That's why he got in this. And amen. And now we're 40 days out. Everyone here has a reason to support Trump. Maybe it's because you believe church is essential. Donald Trump does. Maybe it's because you are happy that the Iranians are finally being held accountable, not being shipped billions of dollars to them. Maybe you're happy that we're finally building the wall. Maybe you're happy that we have Gorsuch and Kavanaugh and you can't wait to see Justice Amy Coney Barrett. Maybe it's because you're in support of the most pro-life president in American history, who Donald Trump is. Maybe it's because you're happy to see Planned Parenthood's funding finally cut. Maybe it's because you were thrilled to see the greatest economy in American history, lowest Black, Latino, Asian American unemployment ever, and you're upset that China sent an epidemiological Pearl Harbor on our country, because they did that for a reason, and they lied about it and they covered it up, because they wanted to destroy the success that America was happening. You have all those reasons, and they're all right, by the way, every single one of them. But let me contribute one more. The question in 2020 is this: who's in charge? That's the question. Is it Peter Strzok or is it the people? Is it Goldman Sachs and Google or is it you? That's the question. Joe Biden believes he can win the presidency by never actually campaigning. By the way, I am so blessed and thankful that this is 700 times larger than the largest Joe Biden rally of this entire presidential cycle. So. And Who's in charge? That's the question. Because under Joe Biden and Senator Harris, the most liberal senator in the entire United States Senate, I'll tell you who's going to be in charge. It is not you. It is not your natural rights. It's not your capacity to speak freely. Instead, it will be a group of people that all of you know that if you give them power, they will not stop. We've already seen what they will do. It's like giving Mayor Wheeler power in Portland, or Gavin Newsom power, or Bill de Blasio. That is who will staff the government of a Joe Biden administration. But here's the amazing thing. I can actually tell you who you should vote for or recommend without actually having to say the opposition's name. It is impossible to make a case to vote for Joe Biden without saying the word Trump. You ever notice this? You ever meet a Joe Biden voter that can never tell you why they're voting for Joe Biden without saying the word Trump? It's impossible. Because there's actually no reason to vote for him. There isn't. And he's, and I mean this as lovingly as I can, he is slipping quickly. He is. And so maybe he's already slipped, you're right. And so we have 40 days, more or less. 42 days, I don't know. And look, I'm 26 years old, about to be 27. And so I look at this a little intergenerationally. And I can tell you right now, the people that are fomenting the rage of the base of the Democrat Party, their agenda is to burn down this entire country. I've been dealing with these people for 5, 6, 7 years because they all at one point were at a university that I probably visited, that I've been communicating to, that are teaching your children that America is a racist, bigoted, homophobic, awful country. And now you've seen it grown to the highest levels of a political movement. And this is the unfortunate truth. America's now on the ballot. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish the person we were running against was a JFK Democrat. I really do. Because then the downside wouldn't be as bad. But it's not. I miss the day when Democrats said under God in the Pledge of Allegiance. I miss the day where they didn't say all of you are racist just because you exist. I think that's awful. I think it's gross. I think it's full of hatred. And so you see precisely the difference between the two. And I could tell you it's even deeper than that because, yes, the policies will be awful. The policies will tear this country apart from within. We know that. But then you ask yourself culturally, what's going to happen from that point forward? You ask yourself, what are the values that we're going to communicate to young people and to students? I visit campuses across the country. There's a crisis happening with young people right now. And if I could tell you some just very candid truth, what we did to shut down our country will go down as one of the stupidest mistakes in the history of Western society. Do you know that 1 out of 4 of young people have contemplated suicide in the last 90 days? 1 out of 4, according to the Center for Disease Control. There more people died of suicide in California than from the Chinese coronavirus during this epidemic. Young people. Where we have an entire generation where there's more single 30-year-olds than married 30-year-olds. We're on pace to have 500,000 less children next year than this year. It's a civilizational collapse. So if you give Joe Biden and them power, you will be richly rewarding an entire movement that will break the spirit. For the first time in American history, my generation will be inheriting something worse than what you guys lived through. And so for all the young people out there, it's time for us to take responsibility for our country. It's just true. It's time for us to no longer blame other people for our problems. It's easy to do that. Like I just said, we've just made a lot of mistakes. I think that some of these mistakes were completely avoidable. But I tell student audience the same thing I told you that previously. This is a gift that we have been given. We have no idea how good it is what we have here. The freedoms, the wealth, the capacity to innovate, to communicate, to start families, all of that is being put in risk and in jeopardy. And you're already seeing pockets of that happening in the country. Look at New York City, Seattle, Portland, where their vision for the country is more people dependent on the government. I'll close with this and then we'll do some questions. One of my heroes is Dennis Prager. He does an amazing job. And Dennis Prager famously says there is the American Trinity. We all know the Christian Trinity. The American Trinity is liberty, in God we trust, and e pluribus unum, which means out of many one. There's also the leftist Trinity, which instead of liberty, they want control. Instead of out of many one, they mean to divide and conquer. And instead, in God we trust, in government we trust. You now have these two very distinct choices in this election. But even beyond that, why are we in this circumstance? It's because we didn't do our job for the last 20 years. We trusted public schools to educate our kids. We trusted our leaders to actually make generally good choices. This is why I call for a doubling of the homeschooling population in the next 5 years. I think it's one of the most important things we can do. God willing, we're going to win in November. But guess what? And God willing, we'll confirm Amy Coney Barrett, which are both incredibly important. But it's actually, this is just the beginning of the fight, everybody. Because we're in a culture war right now. Because guess what? If we win, praise God. But they will only be more motivated from that point forward. We will probably lose the popular vote. Thank goodness for the Electoral College, but we'll probably lose the popular vote. So what are you going to commit yourself to do post-November to be able to contest for this beautiful gift that we've been given? To fight for truth, to fight for freedom of speech, and the greatest country ever to exist in the history of the world. I know what the answer for me is. I will not rest until we win. People say, what is your political philosophy right now? I said, it's very simple. We win, they lose. It's that simple. Let me tell you why. They don't understand anything else besides that. With Kavanaugh, we confirm him, they shut up. With Coney Barrett, when we confirm him, they'll shut up. We win at the ballot box, they go away. Because whether you like it or not, we are now in a gladiator match for the future of our country. Step up, fight, and win. Let's take some questions. Thank you, guys.
A big round of applause for Charlie Kirk, everybody. And as Charlie said, we're going to take some questions. We've got a roll for Charlie and Pastor Rob. We can just all get in line there, and we're good to go. Pastor?
Question for you.
Oh, hey.
How you doing? Do you believe the Senate should bypass the confirmation and go right to the vote?
You mean the hearings? I'm
Yes.
torn on that. Probably no. My opinion, I think the hearings are helpful. I think people need to be reintroduced to Amy Coney Barrett. And from just a political standpoint, strictly political, I actually think that the more people that are exposed to the nuance of the United States Constitution, her capacity to be able to correctly interpret the textual basis of our Constitution. I know this in the Brett Kavanaugh hearings. More people grew in admiration of the U.S. Constitution because of his ability to answer questions uninterrupted on cable television. And so I also think that I want to see the Democrats slander this woman who has 5 children and 2 adopted. Why do I want that? Because I know they will.
Well, my concern is a few years ago, she was confirmed 83-17.
No, I think it was a lot closer than that. That was Barbara Lagoa. She was confirmed with 54 votes in the Senate. So
I'm very concerned that a lot of the Republicans are very weak. And
well, I share that concern, but I could tell you this. Let me just put your heart at ease a little bit. Unlike other confirmation fights and other things, we have a couple more seats, but the amount of grassroots energy that all of you have, by the way, to contact your representatives to confirm, we have set the tone where I think that the U.S. Senate's going to do the right thing. I really do. We might lose Collins and Murkowski, might lose Romney, but I truly believe that if the Senate Republicans do not confirm her, we will lose total and complete faith in Senate Republicans. I really believe that. And so I think it's imperative that they confirm Amy Coney Barrett. And I believe they will be richly rewarded with more voters, more enthusiasm than they have ever seen before to have the third justice in 4 years.
So thank you both for coming. We're just thrilled to have you here. And Pastor, we are praying for that Monday meeting that you have.
Thank you.
And let us know how we can pray for you specifically before we leave. But Charlie, you go to a lot of college campuses. Do you see any hope there? Any signs that your message is breaking through?
Yeah, yes and no. I'll tell you that the administration and the professors are only growing more emboldened currently. However, out of the student population, the radicals are decreasing in number, but they're increasing in volume. I look at every student not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity. And I'll give you some optimism if you guys all want some hope. And it's also a call to action. It's not that young people are opposed to conservative ideas. It's they've never been adequately exposed to them in the first place. Many of them are confounded and confused when I tell them that America's the greatest country ever to exist. They have never heard that in their life. They've only heard 1619 Project lies, critical race theory. So what's the optimism? It's that as soon as they hear it, a completely different response is triggered. And so we have to do a much better job of communicating directly to young people. And I'm going to say something very blunt. We have way too many people going to college in our country. Way too many people. We need more people. We need more electricians, plumbers, carpenters, police officers, entrepreneurs, HVAC, people that work with their hands, people that take gap years, people that enter military service. The national graduation rate is 59%. Those that do graduate, 44% of those are employed in jobs that do not require college degrees. An average person that goes to college will have anywhere between $40,000 to $50,000 in student loan debt, and generally they have no skill whatsoever to show for it. I encourage every parent out there to please dismiss this idea that your child's success will be directly correlated with the piece of paper they are given after 4 years of going to a university. That is not true.
Thanks again, Charlie. God bless you for the work you're doing across the nation in some of the most hostile environments that a person could go. So, military, definitely great place for anybody to entertain. So, my question for you would be, how would you start a dialogue with our Christian brothers and sisters that don't understand deep down that they are conservatives, but they're unfortunately following media and all their friends that pressure them?
Pastor?
He was asking you.
I'll let my pastor start, though.
All right. That's a good one for the pastor.
Yeah, one of the tragedies is that the churches in America are not on the forefront of standing against this scamdemic. And I say that because in our county, 1/100th of 1% is our death rate. And of the tragically over 100 deaths in our county that have been attributed to COVID, only 2 were from. And that's the Freedom of Information Act. I had to swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And we declared that in the court hearing. And that's the same across the country. But when pastors stand with BLM, and they're not, the Bible says that we're to make disciples, not converts. And the reality is the word church, translated, when Jesus said to Peter, upon this rock I'll build mine, everyone says church, the word is ecclesia. Jesus co-opted a secular term. He didn't say synagogue, he said ecclesia. That means public square in Koine Greek. We have abdicated our responsibility in the public square, and if you're going to a church that doesn't teach you how to vote and to understand biblically the gift we've been given in a constitutional republic that was established to give religion freedom, and they're not educating you and they don't understand that, it's time to vote with your feet and find a new church. And if your church isn't open, Why are you still there? I'm serious. I'm so frustrated because liberty is not man's idea. It's God's idea. You'll know the truth will set you free, and only a constitutional republic will survive with a moral people, and it is incumbent on the shepherds and the pastors of this nation to start standing on behalf, if they're true shepherds, to stand on behalf of liberty and to set the captives free from tyranny, period.
And I truly believe that, and I'm trying to play a role in this, there has been a long, prolonged discussion, heated discussion in Christianity around politics. And this needs to happen more so than ever before, because I have been so incredibly stunned to see the amount of pastors in the last 3 months post BLM, march in the streets with BLM, which, just so we're clear, BLM Incorporated stands for the demolition and destruction of the Western prescribed nuclear family. It was on their website for 4 months till they took it down because they were losing so much membership over it. They stand for the abolition of prisons, the legalization of sex work, the abolition of police, more abortions, and they stand in support of looting, rioting, and crime in our streets. What part of that is consistent with the gospel? And these are some of the biggest pastors across the country. And so I think that this is a long overdue kind of, I say discussion, but it's got to be a little bit more than that, a collision course, that there is no biblical backing whatsoever to ever vote for a Democrat. I cannot say that more clearly. And this is your litmus test. I'm willing to offer some grace. I am. Maybe you didn't know BLM was a Marxist insurgents organization. Maybe you didn't. Maybe you really were fired up at that horrendous incident in Minneapolis. Okay. Then I want you to prove it by mobilizing your church and speaking out to end abortion, to confirm Amy Coney Barrett. Show us, churches and pastors. You were so vocal for BLM Incorporated. I'll use one pastor in particular that had a profound impact on my life. Rick Warren, who wrote Purpose-Driven Life. He marched with BLM. So, Rick Warren, you justified it through a mixture of passages. Are you going to mobilize Saddleback Church to go confirm Amy Coney Barrett? Probably not. Because for him, all he cares about is popularity, social media influence. But I'm going to give him grace. I'm going to say, go show us that you think it's wrong that we've had 60 million abortions since Roe versus Wade. Because I hope all of you understand, since the Warren Court and the Burger Court, your entire life you have never had an opportunity to flip the court like right now. You have an opportunity for the first time. I don't care how old you are. You've never had an opportunity like this to save preborn lives.
I want to add to this that 13% of the population of America is black. You cut that in half, male and female, that's 6.5% female. You break that down to childbearing years, that's 4%. 4% of the population of America is responsible for 40% of the abortions. It's a holocaust on the black community, and Planned Parenthood supports BLM, and BLM supports Planned Parenthood. If you really cared about black lives, you would have nothing to do with BLM or Planned Parenthood, and it's time to end abortion in America.
So, and we have an opportunity to do something about it. Next question.
Yeah, Charlie, Sunday on Steve Hilton's show, you said that ending the ridiculous wars was a winning issue for the President of the United States. And at my table up here in the front, we have 3 crusty old Marines, and we have a young man, Schultze. Stand up. Schultze, go ahead and stand up.
Semper Fi.
He's joining the Navy. He's shipping off here pretty soon. The president has done something that no other president in our lifetime has done. He's never committed a single troop to a new war. First president in 50 years to say that. He's also signed the Abraham Accord, the Doha deal. He's reduced the troops in Germany. What do we have to look forward to in a second term with President Trump?
Well, I want to reinforce and reaffirm what you just said. One of my earliest childhood memories was September 11th, 2001. My generation and my life, I know nothing but perpetual war overseas. I know friends that fought in Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to be very clear. When I criticize our misadventures abroad, I am never even by any micron talking about our amazing veterans that have fought those wars. In fact, I think it is not It is not honoring our veterans to keep them overseas without a clearly defined objective in Afghanistan when there is no national security reason for us to continue to be there. Zero whatsoever. We lose, on average, one veteran to suicide every couple hours in our country. The PTSD, the broken families, the lost limbs, the lost arms, the thousands of lives that we lost in Iraq, and we never should have gone into Iraq. It will go down as one of the worst foreign policy decisions in American history. And what makes President Trump different? He's unafraid to strike with force against our enemies, Qasem Soleimani and al-Baghdadi, but he is determined to do something that Joe Biden definitely wouldn't do. He said, why are we in these endless entanglements overseas? President Trump is ending America's longest war, and he's actually brought forth peace between the Emiratis, Bahrain, and Israel, which is so incredibly historic. And he's still with our active military troops and our veterans. And for people that might be in the middle, that might say, I don't know if I like Trump or not, ending the endless wars is an unbelievably politically popular position. By the way, one that Barack Obama never achieved, yet he ran on. Obama committed new troops to new entanglements. President Trump is ending the endless wars. Yeah.
Hi, Charlie. I'm 22 years old.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you. I see so many of my friends and people in our age group that listen to the lies of the left, the things that the media are saying, the things that they see on social media. And when I try to contradict the things that they are talking about, I'm seen as some loony conspiracy theorist. And I'm wondering what a compelling argument would be against that when they see the media and I just say what I see and hear from maybe right-wing advocates, but they think that they're conspiracy theorists. So what would be a compelling argument for Trump as that's not in the media?
Totally. Yeah, thank you. So just so you guys understand, great question, by the way. Thank you for being here, because the American left and their propaganda arm, the activist media, they cannot win arguments. They can't. All they have is emotion and they have rage, whereas we have facts, logic, history, reason, math, science, all these sorts of things on our side. And so to try and shut you up, they try to say you're a conspiracy theorist. They try to say that you're advancing some sort of edgy, fringy, whatever. And so this is a very real issue because it is stopping all discussion. It is almost a complete timeout. People say, I'm not going to talk to you because what you're saying is deemed false by the tech companies. Here's one way to cut straight through it, is always deal in facts and be unafraid to confront them clearly and head on with asking questions. Say very clearly, what is misrepresented about President Trump brokering a peace deal between Israel and the United Arab Emirates? What do you find to be disagreeable about the fact that President Trump might win a Nobel Peace Prize and actually deserve it? What don't you like about the First Step Act that helps reform our prison system in our country? Something that Obama promised to do but never did. What about the VA Accountability Act, Veterans Affairs Accountability Act? Or what about the Right to Try Act, which we actually might find a cure to cancer in our lifetime thanks to the Right to Try Act? And so I feel and sympathize with you because I hope everyone understands the American left is trying to stunt all discussion around this president and conservative values through immediate dismissal. That is only a more important reason for you to speak out more clearly, louder, and more confidently. So we have your back. And if you were in college, I'd tell you to start a Turning Point USA chapter because that's why we do what we do. And stay engaged and stay informed. But it's a very real issue, and I sympathize with it completely. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
What do we do about the mainstream media and the control they have over thought?
Yeah, it's a great question. Look, every single one of you should not visit the websites, or obviously I hope you guys don't subscribe to the New York Times. Oh my goodness. But look, they are losing a lot of legitimacy with regular Americans. They really are. And you have to support conservative journalism. You really do. Go out and find one or two conservative voices that need your help and need your support. And we have a lot of supporters actually that support our podcast. at the Charlie Kirk show in Idaho that help us out. They chip in $5 a month or $10 a month because we're doing what the activist media actually should do. But what do we do about it is, in a lot of ways, you have to become your own journalist. You have to become a citizen journalist. You have to uncover the corruption in your local area. You have to spread it amongst your friends. And the media is not going to do it for you. The activist media is a political arm of the Democrat Party, and they will not report what's happening. Let me give you one example. In late August, early September, 40 children were found to be sex trafficked in Georgia. 40 children. You'd think that would be an important story to hit national newsstands, right? Why did the activist media not care about 40 children being sex trafficked through Georgia? That's strange. Why didn't we actually see the kids' faces or be able to know about the parents? That would be a huge celebration. It's because they don't want President Trump to get the win that he's actually going after child sex trafficking in our country in a very serious way. And he absolutely is. So do your own work is what I'm saying.
Okay, one more question.
Hi, Charlie. Thank you for coming again. That you were my 16th birthday present.
Well, I'm going to get a picture with you, so happy birthday. So
Thank you. The question I have for you is, why do you think that a lot of children my age don't want to talk about, or a lot of Black Lives Matter protesters and supporters don't want to talk about the organization's beliefs in the destruction of the nuclear family?
So can I just pause really quick? I've been coming to Idaho for a couple years, and I'll answer this question. All of you guys should be really worried about these kind of questions I'm getting, because this is supposed to be the most conservative state in the country. No, seriously. So you guys got to really engage and get active, because if I'm getting questions like this from your young people, I'm telling you right now, you got 5 years before this becomes a Democrat state. I've seen it happen. I fled Illinois. We were once a Republican state. Okay? Do you know your 5 school board members by name and the issues they're dealing with? If not, you've abdicated that authority to the Democrats. So what do? Man, you're 16, so you're in high school, I'm guessing. So keep talking and keep the dialogue going and keep informing. But for the adults out there, it's a call to action. You will lose Idaho in a decade if you don't do something. You have to fight. And I'm not gonna comment on all of that. What I am gonna say is this: is every school board race, the education of your children, the advancement of your values, because I'm seeing the warning signs by the questions I'm being asked by young people, you'll lose this state in a couple years. So I don't want to end on that depressing of a note. Let's end on a better note. But no, it's a call to action. Because if you guys think you can just vote and show up, this state will quickly become Colorado. Quickly. Like that in a couple election cycles. Here's the call to action if I can. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
This is to tie in with both of those questions, and I know you didn't come to hear from me, but that's too bad. The press, everything's local. In our town, we have a very liberal local newspaper. We started our own. Do that. Invest in it. Control that. With the young people, in regards to educating them, Charlie said, and it commands us to pray for kings and those in authority. And I asked this of 15,000 pastors across the country, just what he did. Who are your 5 school board members? Who are your 5 city council members? If you don't know them by name and the issues they're dealing with to allow you to live quiet and peaceable lives in all godliness and reverence, and you think salvation's coming on Air Force One, all politics is local. Sacramento's a swamp, geographically and figuratively. If you want to change the swamp, change the source. Get involved in your school board. Get involved in your city council. Today's dog catcher is tomorrow's Congress member. So start participating. Don't let anyone else do that. Go to them. They're boring. They're long. I sat on the city council. I was the mayor of the city. I sat through a 3-hour meeting on the circumference of oak trees. Shoot me. But it's critical. Do it. Charlie, close with it.
Look, Benjamin Franklin said it's a republic if you can keep it. I travel 330 days a year. I do 2 podcasts a day, one on Saturday, one on Sunday. At Turning Point USA, we're on 2,000 high school and college campuses across the country, 160 people on staff, reaching tens of millions of people on digital social media every couple days. We have students for Trump, 350 students for Trump chapters. Please do more. The country is being lost. We are losing this thing, I'm telling you really quickly. This is the call to action. If we rise up, we win. We've been given this gift. It's a republic if you can keep it. Because if we do nothing in a couple of years, you're going to look around and you're going to say, I wish I would have done more. Churches rise up, pastors rise up, citizens rise up. Remember, your philosophy has to be very simple. We win, they lose. God bless you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charlie. Big round of applause for Charlie. Pastor McCoy.